executive presence, and our session is all about that. So get to your corner office. Can we get the deck? Yeah. So get that journey to the corner office, and we will be sharing the some of the tips, tricks with you. Shobita.
So we want to open this session with a quote from Indra Nui. I know she doesn't need any introduction with any of you, right? Just because most people don't make it doesn't mean you can't, right? We all aspire. There'll be many aspirants for corner office here, I'm sure. Not everyone can make it, and I know role models and leaders like Indra Nui are like some people whom we really look up to. So, what does it take to reach the corner office? What is the path? What do we really need to do? What are the action plans that we have? These are some of the things that we are going to discuss today. So, this particular session or this masterclass is designed to empower you all and give you some insights into how to expand your influence, how to present in an executive forum, and how to improve your brand so that it literally takes you to the glass office which is in the corner, which is why we say corner office, right? So let's dive into the session further. What do we have today? We have divided the sections into 6 parts. We have playing the game, which is like understanding the rules of the game, and then we have thinking and acting like a leader, branding your personal brand, sounding and responding like a leader, and then we have a little bit of putting it all together and call to action for all of you. So we start with our first section, playing the game. Any guesses on why there's a chessboard? And there are so many games that we know, right? There are so many sports and games that we play. Any guesses why it is a chessboard and not any other game? Anybody? Excellent. Thank you for that answer. Yes, chess is one of the best strategy games that we have till date. And what do we do in chess? We anticipate the moves, right? And we are always prepared. We think ahead. We have a vision. And that is why we have chosen the chessboard as our slide. So I want to start this section with a small instance or a story. So when we are saying playing the game, right? Let's say I'm giving you a small story, like you've joined a new place, joined a new office, maybe as a people leader or as a middle manager. You have a couple of peers and you report into a senior leader. Your senior leader has asked you to come up with a deck or a proposal for an initiative. Now, what happens? You are new in the place, and one of your other colleagues is a little bit bossy or dominant, I can say. And you're going to your boss's staff meeting, and then you see that that person, your other peer, is already presenting a deck with the proposal, and you were not even involved or informed about this whole thing. So what will your response be? What do you think you are missing out here? Did you really miss out on anything, or how will you feel at that point of time? Anybody?
Just shout out.
Sounds familiar? Have any of you come across any such scenario? Yes?
Okay.
Can I have a show of hands? How many of you have encountered this? Okay, quite a few. And anyone wants to share what they've done?
Give more
Okay.
context.
Cool. Nice. Fine. So let's dive in further and see what we are going to do or how we can manage such situations, which will be on the path to our executive leadership. So, as you can see in this picture here, any organization will have a lot of dynamics. You can see the tip of the iceberg where there is a lot of things. The way we say we get things done. That is what the general culture which is projected, whatever is visible, right? The vision, shared values, policies, etc. Now, when we go deep in, there are a lot of things which are unseen or invisible. So, what are those invisible things? Shared assumptions, unwritten rules. There are a lot of unwritten influences or informal influences which happen. So this is what exactly happened in the story that I just told you, right? Your other peer who was a senior in the organization had a lot more of context. He got together with people and put together a proposal and presented to your boss. And you were like clueless on what is happening. So in these contexts, what would you do? We can look at some of the options. What is in it for me? when you are looking at senior leaders, they always look at what is in it for them, right? You have to understand not just what is told to you, what is told, reading between the lines, as I say. That's something which we really need to understand and be a problem solver. And then we already discussed the unwritten rules of influence and the informal decision making. You should know who are the major people, who is the inner circle of your boss, and then contact them so that you can get more information. And playing to win, this is very, very important. Playing, not just playing the game, we are not just understanding the rules of the game and playing, but we need to play to win, and play to win ethically. So there'll be rules in any organization, but what do you need to do? You need to know to bend the rules. Bend the rules, how much to bend the rules, but not break the rules, and still play to win. And the next thing is learn from the winners. There'll be a lot of other leaders whom you look up to, like role models, other senior leaders whom you look up to. Learn from them, make them your mentors, make them your advisors, and that is how you can learn and play the game better. Isn't it, Shilpi?
Yes, definitely. So when Shobita is saying you know the winners, you learn from the winners, how do you do that? What is one thing which can connect people? How do you reach out to someone whom you see is winning? Anybody? Anybody? You are here to do what? At GHCI, you are here to learn and network. So you build your network with the winners, with the right set of people, but you don't do it only on the one way. You do it in the 360 way. You build network upwards, downwards, even with your peers everywhere. Horizontal, vertical, every side you build your network, because your network is your net worth. Right? That's what we have been hearing. Your network is your net worth. Now, when you are building your network, one of the other thing that you need to do is you identify sponsors. We all have a lot of mentors whom we reach out to. Mentors are someone who will advise, who will give you tips, but sponsors are the ones who will talk about you in the rooms where you are not there. So they are your advocates. Build your advocacy as well when you're building your network. Now, when you're talking to your boss, talking to your sponsors, do it situation specific. You may have a sponsor in your department who is a trusted advisor to your boss, who starts becoming your sponsor. Or you're doing a completely different setup where you need a sponsor as someone who has done this before and who starts seeing the values or the skills building inside you, right? Now, when you're doing this networking, your own perception will come into the picture a lot. What you bring on the table, that is what is going to be the strongest way you build your perception, right? So when you're building your network, when you're talking to people, bring out the value that you bring, create the right perception for you. You are the one who has the whole control on the narrative, isn't it? When you are in a conversation, you know the conversation, the topic. So own that narrative, go with highlighting the value you create. And that is how you create the networks and the sponsors for you to build that influence. Now, when we are building things in a corporate setup, even when we start moving into leadership positions, there's a lot of tendency to ask. I say this more in Indian setup, we have a tendency to ask for permission. I would say don't seek permissions. Apologize later if you need to, but go and do it. Because when you ask, you definitely have a higher chance of getting it done. Now, when you are asking, again, bring data as your foundation. You cannot just ask and say that, hey, tomorrow I want to be the chief of staff. Hey, tomorrow onwards I want to be the VP. You need to have data. You want to lead a project, you need to showcase why you should be the one chosen to do that. Now, timing of this conversation is very, very important. Let's say there is a customer crisis going on in your organization, and you go to your boss that, hey, I was thinking I have not got promoted and I'm right suited. I'm ready. Do you really think that the timing is perfect? Right now, your leader is actually more worried about getting the thing sorted with the customer, with the account. So you need to time your discussions really, really well. Now, when you are building these setups, there's a very, very important part. What's in it for me is what Shobita said, right? So when you are putting your value, put it as a win-win situation. What's in it for me? You are asking. The other person is also going to ask, what's in it for me? So make it a win-win situation. Now, when you're doing all of this, again, pick tasks which are very, very strategic. Don't always keep on looking at the quick win. If I can get these 10 bugs fixed, the product bug log will go down. Fine, it will go down. But will that build your strategic influence? Will that start putting you as someone who is a thinker, who is a visionary, who is not just a builder? So you invest in your reputation by not just being the doer, but picking things which will add on to your credibility. Now, let's do something. If you have a paper and pen, fine. Otherwise, this is your network map. Let's build it. You are at the center of your network map. Agree? You are the one owning the narrative. Now, add the most important center spokes, your leader and your team. Right? You cannot do anything as a leader if you are not aligned with your leader, if your team is not with you. But now comes the important part of your network, where you build your network with the internal leaders, your senior leadership, your leaders' peers, your own peers, and the junior colleagues. It may sound a lot, but it is actually not. When you start doing it organically, those relationships, those networks will start building. But even this is not enough for you to get moving to that corner office. What you need is also the external. You should know your customers, internal and external both. You should have understanding of your partner system, your network. Now, take a very quick minute and let's see what your power grid looks like. You can put people's name or a position to which you want to build a network, or you have a network today.
So basically, you're building a network wherein you're trying to influence all the people or all the stakeholders, as we call them. For example, your leaders' peers, they are very important. They can be your sponsors. Let's say your promotion is being pitched in a room where you are not in. Your leaders' peers should be supportive. They should know you. They should know what you're doing. Only then you will get promoted, right?
Yeah. If you don't mind, we'll take questions towards the end. Yeah, I saw a show of hand there. I hope you have all got to writing down, building your network map on the paper or in your heads. Keep doing this. This is a continuous activity. Slowly, you will start seeing that all the spokes are filled for you. Now, we'll go into the next section, thinking and acting. This picture, I really found it very amusing because this just gives the essence in one line. The fish is drinking the water from the fish bowl where the fish is swimming, right? So what you do, you need to really think before act. I want to tell a really great story of a strategic influence by a leader I love, Satya Nadella. When the AI boom started, some of the other organizations were way ahead in AI research. Satya started looking at it as an opportunity. But if we start from the place that you start building each application, you start building everything in-house, it would have taken a long time. But today, Microsoft is seen as a very emerging, leading company with the AI adoption. How did that happen? It is a perfect masterclass of strategic presence and strategic thinking that Satya showed. He looked at the opportunity from giving infrastructure, which everyone will need, and finds an innovation company which was actually spearheading the AI boom. OpenAI partnership came. Now, Satya could have gone to acquire the company as well. But instead of acquisition, he chose to put it as a strategic partnership where infrastructure, so OpenAI infrastructure runs on Azure infrastructure. So there is a lot of revenue stream happening. All of Microsoft applications use OpenAI tech in the background. And so very, very quickly, Microsoft was able to start rolling out copilots. This is strategic thinking. So Shobita, I want to now pass it to you. What do you think our audience can do, like Satya, and become tomorrow's Satya?
Yeah. So I guess the story itself showed that Satya had a lot of bigger picture or an enterprise perspective, right? So as leaders or as we grow in our career, what we need to do is, other than the day-to-day operations that we manage and what we do on a daily basis, we should be able to tie it to the organizational goals. It should be aligned with the organizational goals. And ROI, I know, I guess all of us hear this day in, day out in our work, right? Any task you pick, the return of investment is very important. The outcome is very important. More than the effort, it is the outcome that matters. So prioritize your task based on the outcomes. Done is better than perfect. I guess at least I see majority of women here, and most of us women are, we tend to be perfectionists, right? We all want to do everything perfectly, and we'll wait for that moment till we can get it perfectly done. No, don't wait for it. If you, even if you can do it 80% perfectly according to your standards, please go ahead and do it. I guess this is applicable in, even in when applying to roles, right? People say that mostly women do not apply. So let's not go by the perfectionist attitude. Let's go ahead and do something, get things done basically. And analysis paralysis. So as we grow, there are a lot of decisions that we take for each and every small thing that we do. We have to prioritize and decide many things. And we may not have the entire data in hand always to decide. So quick decisions are important. At the same time, we should also know how to decide with minimal data in place. Not with, we should go by a risk against reward. Like, is it too risky, or what is the reward I'm going to get if I take this decision? That is a strategy we need to use when it comes to decisions. So, we talked about thinking, right? Thinking and acting. So, we talked about most of the thinking aspects, the decision making and all. We're going into the acting part, taking actions, taking ownerships. So, driving initiatives which is common or cross functional, which is more important for the organization. That is very important as you grow up. And communicating for impact is also important. We have a tendency sometimes to use maybe or just and such hedge words, they say. Don't use such words. Like, if you're giving us a presentation, say, hey, here is the issue, this is the impact, and this is a solution I'm suggesting. Be confident in whatever you're communicating. Stay calm under pressure. They say a leader's mettle is really shown in a crisis or chaos. If you can stay calm and keep your composure under pressure, that is when you really show the higher management, or also your team, that you are able to handle such a crisis or an unpredictable or an unexpected scenario. Build and empower. Use your team effectively. Be a sounding board for your team. Empower them, let them take decisions, and back them up so that you can also take up more and more higher senior level tasks. Now, this is another part of thinking or acting, I would say. Now, navigating the complex dynamics. We all come across very, very different and complex situations, especially difficult conversations. So what do we do when difficult conversations comes? Sometimes we just stay away. We try to avoid those conversations. There's a small framework kind of that we're suggesting for difficult conversations. DESC. Describe the behavior, express the feelings, specify change and the consequences. So be very objective in whatever you're describing. That will help you with some of these difficult conversations. And you should be very clear on what you want and what you don't want. If this is, you're proposing a solution, you know what is the outcome which is coming out of it, and you also know that what is something that you really don't want. Let's say, for example, a new POC or something that you're doing. You know that, okay, if you have 50 or 60% success rate, you're going to go ahead with the POC. But you also know that if you're not failing fast, if you're not getting enough feedback from the customer, you don't want to go ahead with the POC, right? Because it's not relevant for the customer, it doesn't interest the customer. Strategic negotiation. So whenever you go for a negotiation, let's say you're pitching a proposal and you want a buy-in from the stakeholders, do your groundwork first, have particular alternatives, let's say plan A, B, C in place, and go with those plans so that if A doesn't work, we can go with B or otherwise C. So it shows that you need the, you have the clarity and the context. Obviously, credibility is something you would have already built. And emotional intelligence. I guess it goes without saying in today's world how much collaboration and commitment and communication. As a leader, the emotional intelligence is important. So with that, we kind of go to the next section, branding and marketing. you can see, you are your brand. Why is it written here, you are your brand? Do you think you are, all of you are your own brand? Okay. Any examples that you want to take? So we already saw Indra and Satya's examples, right? Now I can also give you a couple of more examples. Let's say Sudha Murthy. What comes to your mind when you think of Sudha Murthy? Tell me one word. Yes, simplicity, right? She's a very simple person, and she's a lot of compassion. She does a lot of social activities. Now let's say, let us take another Indian leader, an entrepreneur who's been very successful, Sridhar Vembu. He stands out in all the entrepreneurs, right? What is one word that comes to your mind when I talk about Sridhar? Yeah, down to earth. And rural development, right? What he's doing through Zoho is that he's enabling and nurturing the rural or the small town talents. And another thing about Zoho is also that they are completely self-funded and bootstrapped. They are not running on any borrowed or investors' funds. So what does it show? Financial independence. He can take his decisions without waiting for a board or an investor to give a buy-in, right? So this is why we say that branding is very, very important. Isn't it so, Shilpi?
Yes, definitely. And I want now for all of you to think of how you create your own brand. We love industry leaders who have proven them, who have given us some of the things that we look up to. Your brand, your leadership presence is all about the value you bring, the influence that you bring, and how you present yourself, right? So, one of the things that you again need to do is, from being an internal consultant, doing things very, very internally, start thinking big, look at that bigger picture, and become the advisor or the architect of the things. Like the examples we are talking, Sudha Murthy, Satya, Indra, Sridhar, all of these people, they did not wait for someone else to build and come together. They were the architects who were taking things into their hands and building. So when you do this, what is the leadership quality that would come out other than something that we have already told? When you are putting your value, you are building your influence, you have your network, your leadership presence is seen. What is one leadership identity that you identify with? Just shout out. Courage, yeah. So you build your own leadership identity with the things which you value the most, which align with your value system. And when you're talking about your work, do it with pride. You should be talking about it with a lot of pride. There is a Google program, there used to be I Am Remarkable. It's a very simple concept which they say, if you have data to prove it, you're not bragging, you're branding yourself. Talk about the value you bring with pride, with data backing it. That is the only thing which I would say. So when you're talking about your value, your brand, talk about it, accept gracefully if you're getting a compliment, and back it with the data. There are sometimes we may make a wrong decision. You don't need to fret over it. Admit it gracefully. Now pivot towards the solutioning part. Again, keep the focus on the problem solving than what happened or who did it. And that is what gonna give you a lot of leadership edge, because you are the one who is solving, who is moving things ahead. Now, when you're championing your ideas, you need to do in the situation, we already spoke about it before also. When you're saying something, don't make it as a proposal or a suggestion. You give a whole pitch, right? So from next quarter, I want to make sure that all our team is focused on security, AI, and quality. If I just say that, okay, it's a proposal. I need to add more details to it to make it a proper pitch, a plan. And that is when you champion your ideas to get it highlighted. When you are doing anything, do it for the impact, not for the small, small things which could be around you. When you are networking, network with intent. We already saw in our network map, right? You need to be intentional. You can have nice, good relationships, but you need to be really intentional about the people you're networking with. Now, all of this, I want to bring one very important part. You have got your strategic thinking in place, you have got your network backing you, you have got the sponsors, you're thinking with the data, you're bringing the data with the value. It may still not land if you're not able to command the room. What we mean by command the room is very simple. If I start doing this, you need to do this and do this. Is it distracting or not? Right? So gestures are important, but you need to really balance them and use them effectively. When you are in a meeting, use a position very strategically towards the center of the room. Stand tall. Give an eye contact, but do not stare at the people. Eye contact in a handshake, in a conversation is very, very important, but you need to balance it out so that it does not become staring. You really need to look for the job. Like if someone is coming in shorts and sitting on the CEO chair, for 1 second, we all will be really startled, right? You dress for the job. You look for that professional, polished brand that you want to bring for yourself. That is what is about marketing your brand and to get you noticed, not just in your company, everywhere in the industry, right? So, this is something now is a very interesting thing. Shobita, why don't you go through it?
So we heard a lot of things. Why don't we put a little bit of it into action? I hope all of you would have heard about elevator pitch, right? Elevator pitch is something which is short description of the impact you're making. Let's say you're meeting a leader in the elevator. Before it reaches its next stop, you're giving an idea about what you do so that you're making an impression on the leader. So here's a sample elevator pitch that we have put. I'm not going to read it out, but look at those highlighted areas, right? Your name, your years of experience, what do you specialize in? You know, what is your specialty, your skill or expertise? And what is your current focus? What are you building now? And what are you going to deliver? And that you're using emerging technologies or any innovative solutions. And obviously, you know, if you want to add on some of the numbers, whatever cost reduction or effort reduction that you've done, these are some of the things that we really need to be there in your elevator pitch. What do you need to do for this? Prepare, practice it, and pitch it with passion when you see a leader. You should always have it at the tip of your tongue so that in case you just bump into someone, you should be into a leader, then you should be able to really put it across and make an impression. So why don't we do a quick exercise here? I would ask all of you to get your pen and papers, or if on your phone if you're comfortable there. Prepare a specific elevator pitch, sample elevator pitch for yourself, and maybe share it with the person next to you. So we have some time for that.
Yeah. So we will time it to maximum 2 minutes so that the session stays on track. You take time to think, 30 seconds to think, 30 seconds to then form your, and then 30 to talk about each other's pitch. Just pair up and let's get started. It's not working.
Okay. Timer is not on.
No, that's okay.
We'll look at the timer here. The time is started.
Yeah.
So let's be quick.
Lots of pitches.
Sorry for that tech glitch. I guess our timer didn't, probably something with the deck. It didn't start.
I would have loved to have a cookie exploded after tea session. Okay.
Back.
That's a bigger technical glitch.
Oh, it's all gone.
TechCast, I think we need your help. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're 1 minute down. I guess ideally this is the time when you need to tell it to the person next to you. 30 seconds for you to tell it to your friend, and another 30 seconds for your friend to tell it to you. I already see a lot of people discussing.
Bring your own value. Bring your own value. What you do, what is you specialize in.
Yes, they say no, USP, your unique selling proposition for a brand. We have 30 seconds more.
I see a lot of people already discussing and sharing that pitch.
Okay, people, I guess we are almost done. Another 5 seconds left. If you've already done it, great. Otherwise, we would definitely encourage you to go ahead and at least complete it and pitch it with your friends or others later on. In the interest of time, we will move on.
Yeah, and remember, every time you practice, your pitch will keep getting more and more polished and very crisp. You will be able to just roll it out of your tongue. So let's move to the next section.
Yeah. So we already saw how to play the game, how to think and act, how to brand yourself. Now is the time to, put it more in action, how to sound and respond, right? There'll be so many places where you have to present, like the elevator pitch itself. That's the way you kind of sound is very important, the impact, right? And also many other places where you have to present to the executives or senior leaders. You may get just maybe 2-3 minutes or 5 minutes to make an impact. How do you make an impact in that less of a time? That's what we are going to see now.
Yeah. So can I have all of you back with me, please? Let's sound together. Speak up. Yes. You ask really good questions. You speak up when you have something to say. When you're speaking up, you do it gracefully. You ask the questions gracefully. When you are into an argument, into a discussion, listen to the other person very, very intently first before responding. Give it a pause. They say, right, 3-second pause before you are ready to respond. It really lets you reflect, and instead of reaction, you end up giving a response. So really, really practice giving that pause. Listen to others. In active listening is the term that they say, right? So listen with the intent of understanding, and then when you are going to respond, focus on the action that can be taken ahead rather than just what the other person said. So again, focus on the value that you bring, the problem that you're solving, the solution that you're building, rather than the person, what the other person is saying. In the last section we said that admit your mistake gracefully, but don't keep doing it too often, because sometimes you just do things. I'll give you a very simple example. There are times when we are late to a meeting, right? Unavoidable. I used to earlier say that, sorry, I got late. Then I understood a tip from one of close friend, who then said, instead of saying sorry for waiting, if you say thank you for waiting, sorry I'm late, if you say thank you for waiting, it just flips the narration, right? You're not apologetic, you're appreciating their time by not saying sorry but making them feel value, and that just flips the script around it. Now whenever there is a problem discussion going on, the room may get heated because there's a lot of ideas exchange happening. Focus on bringing this solution that is there, that you can bring, and avoid the filler words like okay, maybe, perhaps. They don't execute any power, they just show suggestions. So when you are doing a suggestion, when you are talking about a solution, use a more powerful vocabulary. Instead of saying maybe we can do it, what you can say is, I recommend this is a good way. We can also explore B and C. That way you have said the same thing, that okay, you're not probably having 100% confidence on A, you're not fully fixed on A, you're open for B and C also, but you're not saying that okay, maybe I'm not even sure, but we can do it. So use a very, very powerful vocabulary. Avoid these filler words which keep coming very often. And now when you are negotiating, do not accept when you know that you're getting something less. What will help you doing in that is data. I'm telling you this from experience. People tend to do quick solutions, and in the quick solutions, usually the negotiations don't really work out if you don't know the data, if you don't know what you really are valuable for, what is your skills, where you can put it. So when you're negotiating, remember that, but don't settle for less. If you settle for less once, you will be asked to settle for less again and again and again. So,
and especially when you're negotiating with your pay, know your worth well. There are a lot of websites available, Levels FII, in case you don't know. Please have a check before you are going for a salary negotiation, and know your worth, and do not settle for less at all. You should know what is your worth and what the market pays. You should know the numbers really well so that you can ask for it rightfully so.
Yeah. So if I start talking in a very, very long sentence, we used to do this and we do this, though we were doing this, but we ended up doing this. Too long, you lost me, right? Use shorter sentences. Give very, very direct language of what you want to do. Give eye contact. If I start reading, looking there, it's not going to be fun, right? You're not going to even connect with me. So give that eye contact, whether it is a common, normal setup, meeting setup, you are in a one-on-one setup, even in virtual meetings. Switch on your camera. Once people start putting face to your name, That is where the building of the connection starts really. When you're talking to different stakeholders, you may have the same value proposition you're bringing, but you need to tailor your message really, really differently. With a product team, when you're talking, you need to talk about customer. If you're talking to engineering, you need to also focus about what value you bring, what engineering efficiencies you can bring probably. What's in it for me should be tailored based on the stakeholder you are talking for, rather than having a fixed pitch that is there, right? Everyone may have different opinions, so you acknowledge others while not diminishing your own expertise. Have trust on your capabilities, your expertise, but acknowledge what others bring on the table too. Yeah, Shobita.
Yeah. So this now we're discussing some, I guess most of the things we've already discussed. I'll just run through a little bit about decision making. We already saw how we can be strategic and effective in decision making. Um, Organizational impact and aligning with vision is very, very important. And speaking the business language is also very important. And positive language. Don't use negative languages. Try to avoid negative languages and phrases. That is also very relevant. And be decisive yet inclusive. How do you do so? Especially when you're talking to your team. You put out your decision or your suggestion and ask for their opinion as well. They should be heard and valued also, right? That's how you can be inclusive.
So, your leadership presence, no, I think no surprises, is only 7% about what you say, but how you sound is the biggest piece of the pie in your leadership presence. And you need to really bring that essence out. Now, while we put all of this together, remember, you need to understand the game, you bring your strategic thinking in the place, build your credibility, you start thinking with the intent to solve the bigger problem, bigger pitch, and pitch it really nicely when you are acting with the data, with the right stakeholders, with using the right language. You build your own elevator pitch to build your brand where you bring out the value that you bring on the table. What is the leadership identity that you want to bring out into others? You brand it, you market it, you create your presence in offline setups, in online setups. You do it often, but with the right intent. And then you really care about how you are sounding. Is it concise, clear, with credibility or not? And that is what this whole session from us has been about. Now
We're looking at the stages of career development. We just kind of put it all together. You can say we start, the skills are your foundation, right? That is the most important thing which you build on. Then you learn the rules, how to play the game and how to play to win. Develop and expand your network or build relationships, and then brand yourself. Also focus on the finances, your salary, negotiations, importance, and as important as your professional future, your personal priorities are also important. And develop further leadership skills as you climb the ladder. Create a workplace legacy, and that is how you really become an executive leader.
You own your legacy, you build your legacy, you build your brand. This is how a winning leader wheel looks like.
Yeah, so this is, a thought for all of you to reflect on. Your core will always be your values. Look at your current role and context. By living your values, how can you build and utilize your connections on network and, make better decisions, aligning a vision, and also communicate with impact. At the same time, position yourself as a visionary leader. And that is what we wanted to convey through this session.
Now, time to action again. How about you take a quick time to draw your own winning leader wheel?
Yeah,
What
your
does
wheel
it
should
look
probably have your values, what is more important to you, what your priorities are, and what your vision is for your future. So everybody's definition of success will differ. So your definition of success or being a leader will be different from your friends or your next person's, right? So based on that, you can create a winning leader wheel. So
Anyone who is able to quickly create your winning leader wheel and want to share? Yes.
so this is just a framework.
Yeah.
Whatever you fill in there will totally be based on your priorities and your values and what actions that you want to take.
In your priorities, your value, you also need to consider you in it. So if the timing is not right, it's okay. Okay, so do this activity, continue to learn. Take this next 30 days, just take it. You observe whatever you're doing from the tips that we have shared, how close you are to build that executive presence for you, closer getting to that office. Act, make some changes, and grow. With that, we come to the end. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Shobita. Questions? I think I saw a hand there. You
Yep.
can
If
find
you
us
want to
both.
connect with us, please feel free to. And with that, I also wanted to let you all know we will be starting a cohort called Show Your Worth, which is based on a famous book by Shalmina Babai Abji, who was the ex-VP of IBM. We aim to start it next year, early next year in January. In case you're interested to join that cohort, please feel free to reach out to me or Shilpi.
So, hi, I'm Nikita. So my question is on when you're seeking for mentorship or an advocate, especially outside of your organization, there's always this apprehension of what's in it for them. So, what are your thoughts on how to navigate that and how to go to that conversation with a give and take attitude?
So I would suggest that don't go and in your first conversation with someone that, hey, I'm here and could you mentor me? Rather than that, try to build a relationship with that person. Let's say how you know them, like you met them at a place and there are some things, some qualities in them that you like, or maybe they are some recent achievements that they had or something that has created that spark in you, and build a relationship, and then over a period of time then you ask for it, and then it makes sense. Share initially, it should be just a sharing, a give and take kind of a conversation, and after that you can, if you feel more comfortable and you feel that the person is also comfortable, then you can pose the question, not before that.
Hi, Yogita here.
Hi, Yogita.
I hope, yes. I just want to know, off late I noticed that people who just get into IT, they feel that in just 1 or 2 years they'll be a manager, and that is what a leader is. I want you people to just throw some light on it, saying that manager is different and leader is different. So, let them just understand. So if you can just let me know what is your take on this. If you could just tell everyone here that what is basically a leader, and should they really wait, or just 1 year, 2 year, a car and an iPhone is a leader? So if you can just throw
A car and an iPhone is definitely not a leader.
please do tell them that they need not sell their kidney for that. So please do tell them that.
Thank you, Yogita. A manager is someone who is more operational. A leader is someone who's more strategic and visionary and thinker. That is a very simple differentiation. If you are only focusing on getting the work done, you have still not moved out of being the manager. And a leader could be your child. My 11-year-old could be a leader, right? So leadership does not need any rank, any title, any age bar. Anybody could be a leader. But you need to start moving from execution to thinking.
Hi, this is Kushbu. My question to you is, see, in this emerging environment, sometimes you may enter a room where you don't have contact with so many emerging technologies. Sometimes, some of the buzzwords may tossed on you from leadership or from, external customer. How you take that question so that you are pretending to listen, you are understanding their thought, you want to really, elaborate on them, but right now you don't have context. But you want to make them feel heard. You don't want to, make them feel like, hey, this person doesn't know anything. You don't want to vanish all the credibility you have built so far just because of some of the, buzzword which has just emerged in market and you are not aware of them.
Okay. 2 things I can say. One, do not go to any meeting without your prep or groundwork. You should know the agenda of the meeting, who is coming to the meeting and what is being discussed, right? So that you can have some prep. That will save you a lot. And second thing, if you don't have complete context, it's always okay to say that I've heard about it and probably I've read about it a little bit, but maybe to implement or to, go ahead with the idea, we will need some more time. give me the time. Let me research with my, and get it with my team, brainstorm and come back. That's always okay. Buying some time is also very important. It's all about how you frame your sentence or statement.
I want to add one thing. Leaders are not know it all. Leaders may not know it. That is why they have the team. They bring the experts. Leaders are learn it all. Remember that. You don't need to know everything. But yes, your prior work and research that Shobita mentioned, is it what going to give you the edge?
You spoke about acting with authority, right?
Yeah.
There are at times where women, when they act with authority and question something in a meeting, we come across as rude. When a man say it, like when a man says it, it sounds very polished. Whereas when a women questions it, it comes across as rude. How do you suggest we deal with such, situation?
Think about your question again. Is it about a man and a woman? Or is it about how the message was being delivered, or how the thought was being projected? I do agree that there is some difference which is there, but it is also on us to come out of that and focus on how we put forward our point, which is backed with data. It is very, very important that you know what you're talking about, and then how you put it. You use the word polished for the man, and you did not use the word polished for the woman part, which when in your question. That polishedness could be preparedness, that polishedness could be the right vocabulary, that polishedness could be about the right time and at which the question was put, and it could also come from the relation that the person has built. If you just go into a meeting and start saying, okay, I don't think your idea will work, nobody knows you in that meeting, nobody knows your credibility on the topic. So it is very difficult for them to accept what you are saying.
And I guess it's also about likability, right? I mean, you choose whether you need to be liked by everyone, or you need to be respected by everyone. And before you go into a meeting, if you have allies who can support you, another man or another woman who stands up and says, hey, she has a point, I agree to her, then you will never be called as rude or.
Yeah.
So I mean, if the point is valid. So
Actually, it comes from a feeling of being very nice. So in
That's
the
what-
initial years of my career, I was able to be very nice. So I started like polishing that and like backing my meetings with data. But there are sometimes when I've come across as rude or like pushing back on things along with data. So that is hence my question.
no, it's absolutely okay to push back, is
Yeah.
what I would say. Not everyone can like you. That's
Yeah.
okay.
We are not selling ice creams here. Leaders can't be the ice cream sellers. So if you really think what you're saying makes sense for the organization, for the project, go push for it.
Thank you.
Shilpi, Shobita, oh my god. Let's give them a minute to just breathe. For all of the energy they've put in, all the crowd
Thank
they
you.
pulled into this hall. My god, the energy you took. Okay, everybody, let's take a deep breath in. A deep breath. I need to hear it. Can't hear it. Yeah, like consume all of the oxygen, because this contains a lot of inspiration and a lot of positive energy.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
Divya, we want to take a stage
Yeah, of
selfie
course.
with
I
our
am
crowd.
going to let you do
Awesome
it.
crowd.
I am going to let you do it. But the crowd wants to ask you, let's say, 2 more questions, and I'll let you choose, not from the front rows now, given a lot of bias and we are unbiased. Do you remember?
So,
two questions.
I see a red prompt here saying
Time
time's up.
Oh, can we give one more? One more? One, please. Anyone? Let's go randomly. Tell me, Shilpi, Shobita. Where does it go? Right, left? I don't know. Last question.
Let's see if a gentleman has a question.
Any ally in the room? Any ally who can be loud enough, proud enough? Any ally? Anyone? Anyone? I don't see him. I don't see. Any ally? Men in the room?
We see a lot of hands in the front.
Yeah.
What about the back?
Not many at the back.
Right? Okay. Okay, allies here? Anybody? Allies.
That's okay. Let's get the women,
Women,
to rule
yes,
the world.
yes. Now I know who to give. They've been raising their hands for quite a while. Right. All right.
Thank you so much. Hey, Shilpi and Shobita, thank you so much for this insightful session. It was really interesting. My question is, usually, the loudest in the room is getting heard, right? So, but there are a lot of women or men who are like softer, but they want to get to that leadership state. Like, what is your advice for that?
You want to start?
So I guess it's not just about the way you speak, right? It's also about the data, and also about the data as in not when we speak, what results or what outcomes we bring, and how we build those relationships. We already talked about the network, right? So how you connect with a person or senior leader one-on-one also makes a lot of difference. I have seen many of my colleagues, senior colleagues, who don't even open their mouth in meetings, but they get promotions every year. So I don't think it's just about being the loudest in the room. Sometimes to drive a point you may need it, but it is a lot of background work. Probably the background work might be a little more if you are not able to drive the points in the meeting. That's what my take. Shilpi, you want to add something?
Yeah. Next time someone is being the loudest in the room, ask them a right question. If they really know their topic, that's good. Then you have a good, tough competitor with you. If not, they will get down and be quiet. So you slowly start building your credibility with that by putting them to a quiet corner.